Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Virginia, and you know what I do. I try to help people transform their lives by developing a mindset for growth and for success. And we have shifted gears within this past year to make sure that we're focusing on our special needs population. As many of you already know, I am a psychiatrist, but I'm also a mom of two children who have special needs, including a son who has a diagnosis of autism. And so I have been able to cultivate great community, phenomenal community of women and men, children, folks who are partners, organizations, businesses, just a whole host, researchers, just to name a few of the people that we've been able to connect with over the past year. And what started out as a one-time conference presentation of 7 phenomenal parents has turned into an entire movement, which is the Autism Alignment Movement, which does include this interview series. Now, I had the pleasure of interviewing a phenomenal young lady last year, and I'm going to ask her to. I'm going to ask the person that's here. I'm going to ask her if she would maybe give us some information about this phenomenal woman. I've heard that you were talking to Damon Johns a year ago or so about an incredible female who's a mom. And if you wouldn't mind, could you just kind of share with us some more information about this person that you were talking about? Could you tell us what you told Damon John?
So I asked Damon John if he'd ever met a mom who was raising a child with autism as well as leukemia, but also building a business. And if he met this mom, what would he say to her when he met her? And he shared with me his own experience with a mom who was handling a lot on her own. And so he said, "Yeah, I would definitely like to meet her." And so I said, "How do you do?" So
Oh, so it was you.
I was referring to myself.
It was you.
Yeah.
So this mom, this entrepreneur, this momtrepreneur who has a son with special needs, who is also totally rocking it out when it comes to handling life and business successfully, and has a marriage that is very much intact, and is able to travel on her own, but also travel fully, and vacation fully and enjoy that. That mom is you.
That is me.
And Damon John said that he wanted to meet that mom. So, for those who are watching this interview series right now, you are meeting the mom that Damon Johns wanted to meet. This woman right here, so let me formally introduce her. This is Tawana Brown Smith, or Tawana B. Smith, who actually is the creator and founder of a movement of her own. She is the Mom's Guide to Travel. She has written a book called The Mom's Guide to Travel, which, if you stick around long enough, and you participate, audience participation is necessary here. If you stick around long enough and you participate, you might be leaving this very webinar with a copy of that book. So I am delighted to be able to introduce to you, or reintroduce to some who may know her from other circles, Mrs. Tawana Brown Smith. Thank you so much for agreeing to be an interviewee, and welcome.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure talking to you.
I love it. So I met you formally about a year and a half ago, but I heard about you long before we actually got a chance to meet. And so I'm going to question you based on, or interview you based on some of the things that I heard about you first. So first of all, the Mom's Guide to the Mom Strategist, Mia Redrick, who is a life and business coach, she said, one of the first times I met her, she says, "You have to meet this young lady. I've got to connect you with her because you're like-minded folks and you both have children with a diagnosis of autism, and you are both married and have families. And I think that you'd like to learn more about her. So tell me how it is that you became who you are. You became the Mom's Guide to Travel. So give us a sneak peek, if you don't mind, a tour of where you started traveling, and then how did you transition into being the mom who is the Mom's Guide to Travel?
Well, I was always a traveler before this whole quote unquote travel movement started, before social media. The very first time that I traveled on my own was actually 13. I was 13 years old, and I I'm originally from New York, and I was brave enough to go to boarding school in Connecticut on my own for 4 years when I was
Wow.
13. And in that time, I met a lot of kids from around the world. And so that is what was the initial impetus for me wanting to just see the world, because all I knew was Brooklyn, New York. And if you meet a lot of New Yorkers, most of them are, some of them can be provincial and just want to stay in New York. And, through college, I did any type of opportunity that I had to either study abroad, whether that was in Italy or whether that was in Holland. I just had a curiosity for traveling. And when I had children, I was adamant about not uh, putting that off, not losing my identity as a woman, as Tawana, before she became Tawana, Amir and Assad's mom. And I remember the very first trip that I took, my son was about 13 months old, and or maybe a little younger, and I went with a girlfriend. I hadn't had a break since I had him. And I went with a girlfriend of mine to the spa in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Actually, we went snowboarding, and then we went to the spa. And it was really just an overnight trip. So I started off small, as far as going off on my own. And then around 2008, as I decided that I didn't want to go back into the government because my master's is in public policy. And I just knew that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing the government thing or the Wall Street thing. Both of them are my background because I had this little baby, and I wanted to just so into him and provide things for him that normally children can't get when both parents are working out of the home in pretty much high pressure jobs. And where we live, we're here by ourselves. Like, we don't have our family that lives with us. So there were just a lot of different clues for me that said, we need to make entrepreneurism make sense for me. And 2008, after I had my second son, I realized, you know what? It's going to be travel. Travel is going to be the thing that is going to work, because I saw how it had educational benefits for my kids. I saw how it, gave us quality family time, and it also kept seeding that desire and that appetite that I had for travel. And so that's when Mom's Guide to Travel was born in 2008.
Okay. So I like a couple of the things that you said. So I hope that the folks that are watching this picked up on that this was something that you did before you became a mom, before you became a wife, and it was a part of your identity and you didn't want to lose that. So you continued with that. Now, was there any kickback from family members, friends?
Oh my goodness. Actually, my mom it's so funny. I was telling a friend this the other day, because, what you basically have is, uh, uh, I think, generational differences and understanding of what motherhood looks like, and an understanding of what your behavior should be when you are a mother. And so a lot of times mothers just imitate what their moms did, right? Because that's the example that they had. And I remember when I was leaving on that trip, my mom, and it was only an hour and a half away, and my mom said, "Who are you leaving the baby with?" And I said, "His father." I was like, "I'm leaving him with his father." And she was just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. You're going away. I never left you guys alone or like with your dad when you were babies." And I said, "Well, I'm kind of a different animal. Like, I just that I don't see myself waiting until my kids are 18 years old to continue living my life. I don't think that it has to be an either or. I think that it can be a marriage just with some adjustments. I didn't feel like I had to choose one over the other. So my mom was actually the first person to give me that pushback, but it was a reaffirmation that I needed to continue doing this and to help break that idea, that sort of like a traditional idea of what motherhood looks like, because she's not the only mom who believes that or thinks that way. There are, millions of moms who believe that you have to wait to
Mhm.
quote unquote just kind of continue to pursue the things that interest you. So I wanted to challenge other moms who were like me, who felt like they had to choose between their who they were as a person and motherhood.
Good for you. I'm so glad you did, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to glean from this wonderful knowledge that you have. You said that you were able to marry the hobby that you had, the travel, because other people may have a different hobby, but for you, that was something that was really sustaining for you and was part of your identity. But you were able to marry that with other things. So how do you juggle being able to travel? And I noticed you gave us one hint already where you said, I started out small. I didn't go away for a 3 month trip. I went an hour and a half away. So that's one way. But how do you marry the two?
Well, I mean, everyone's situation and circumstances are different. So you have to consider, well, what are my circumstances? So as I explained, uh, we don't have a parent here, a grandparent here to take care of our kids. So if the two of us want to go away somewhere, then we're either going to have to pay someone, or we are going to have to take our kids to a family member, the closest 3 hours away in New York, or 8.5 hours away in South Carolina, or bring them here. So, I try to be creative with pursuing the things that I want to do. But again, it is starting off small and knowing what my constraints are. And just because they're constraints doesn't mean that it's an impossibility, right? It just means that you have to be a bit more creative and you have to be a bit more strategic about how you go about doing the things that you want to do.
Now, I noticed you mentioned that your mom or your family outside of your nuclear family, that you were able to explain to them, hey, this is important to me. This is what I wanted to do. But again, going back to marriage, is this helpful? Is this not helpful? Did you get any kickback from your spouse at all?
No, I didn't, because again, I think that it's important for you to remain who you are, right? And so there was no inconsistency. When I met my husband in grad school, he met me as a traveler. We got engaged in Cyprus. We had our wedding on a cruise. So travel is a part of our DNA. And so I was very honest and open with my husband that I still wanted to travel and I wanted us to travel as a family, and that we weren't going to stop traveling as a family. Is it hard? Though sometimes, yeah, there's a lot of sacrifices that we have to do, and looking at schedules. I mean, we have a trip next week, and then like, you have to tell them in enough time in advance, and we've got to move the chess pieces around to make sure that we can make things happen the way we want to make it happen. And so, he never, my husband never really gave me any pushback. And I think the key to it is making sure that he is also able to do the things that he wants to do, because it's a two-way street. So if I had to go away and do my mom trips, it was almost like, a blessing to him. You go away and you do your like guy trip. So it's just, and if you're in a situation where maybe they don't understand, that maybe you have to maybe paint it for them a little bit. Hey, I'm gonna go do a girlfriend trip. You one of your guys want to go someplace? Just it depends on what the personality is of of your spouse, just to make that little suggestion.
Absolutely. I like that. Suggestion, negotiation.
Absolutely.
When did you come up with the idea of using travel as respite? And
Um,
and tell us what respite is.
so respite is essentially the opportunity for a caregiver to take time out for themselves and revive themselves, because the term respite is oftentimes used in association with caregiving. The process of being a caregiver, and a lot of times when people think of caregivers, they usually think of it within the framework of an adult taking care of their parent, their elderly parent, whether they have some medical issue, whether they have Alzheimer's. That's the common framework in which people think of caregiving. And one of the things that messages that I have to challenge that is that caregiving does not just look like that. Caregiving on what we would consider pediatric caregiving is when a mom is taking care of her child beyond just the maternal, everyday, traditional, typical taking care of your child. But if you have a child that's sick, or you have a child that has special needs. It goes beyond the norm of what you do every day, and it taxes you a little bit more emotionally and mentally, and maybe even physically. And so, when you think of respite, it is really an opportunity for the caregiver to take time out for themselves, get a break from their normal duties, and revive and refresh themselves. And so, as a mom dealing with autism, and so my son is 10. When he was diagnosed, it was around two. He was around two, and then 2.5 years later, when he was 4.5 years old, he was diagnosed with leukemia. So, when I look at the trajectory of my life of motherhood these past 14 years, it's just interesting how certain things kind of fell in place and how things made sense. And so, 4.5 years old, I was already traveling. I was already, working with different companies, doing campaigns for them, or going to different conferences. And again, making arrangements with my husband and compromises with my husband to make sure all of that was possible. So when he was diagnosed at 4.5 years old, um, there is this time when you are diagnosed with cancer that you're just not doing anything. Like everything gets shut down. So like the induction period is typically around 30 days. We're talking about 30 days. And I was in the hospital with my son every single day by his side, sleeping in the bed with him, everything, making sure that I was getting educated on his care, getting educated on the drugs, the side effects, the conversations that I needed to have with the doctors, making sure I had appointments set up, in addition to making sure that I was coordinating everything for my oldest son, because you still have that other child that you want to make sure that you're not neglecting. And it's really difficult sometimes. And so there was all of this mental pressure on me. And although, I am married, you still have the spouse who has to continue to work to take care of the bills and take care of your home. And so I really took care of everything that had to be medical. Uh, but in that time, I was kind of wearing down. And when initially I decided I was going to give everything up. And then I stopped and I said, no, I'm not going to give everything up. I'm just going to take a break. And so when I went on that very first trip on my own, I think I traveled again. We got diagnosed in June. I think my first trip by myself was around August, September. My husband was like, just go, like, get a break and just go. And so it was really like his permission telling me, like, it's okay, like, you can go, I can handle it, that allowed me to go. And when I did, I was like, gosh, I gotta make sure that I keep doing this because it's therapeutic. And every time I went, I realized that I was filling my cup back up, so that when I came back, I was 100% available to my child, to my husband, to my oldest, mentally and, just physically. And I think that for me was my medicine and helped me to stay out of being depressed, just because we had so much going on. And so then I realized that travel was respite for me, because although I might have been on assignment doing some things, you're not working 24 hours a day. I had peace and quiet. I could, decide my meals for myself. I didn't have to, like, worry about doses of methotrexate, or, Bactrim, or whatever else I was giving my son. I could just, be me for a moment. Whether it was 2 days, 3 days, it was an opportunity for me to recover and refresh myself. And so that's when I knew more moms, especially moms of children with special needs and critical illnesses, need this in their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've both been in that same place. And interestingly enough, you said that he was diagnosed and you're in the hospital the beginning of the summer, and a couple months later, you're off on your first trip. And I smiled. I know I probably smiled for folks to see, but I was definitely smiling internally, because it was exactly 2 months after my son's second brain surgery that I went on a women's retreat. And that was my respite. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. It was already planned before he got ill. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to go. And everyone said, you got to go. So I'm so glad that you had people, your husband saying go. Same thing on this side. So for those who are watching, I don't want anyone to think, oh, that's kind of unusual that 2 months after her son's diagnosed, she's going to go someplace. Guess what? She's not alone. So you've got two moms here, two professional moms who had children who were chronically ill, not just autism. In your case, it was leukemia for your son, in addition to the autism. And in my case, my son had hydrocephalus, and he had his second brain surgery. And we were on our way to being scheduled for his third surgery to replace his shunt. And I remember, again, having this trip planned and thinking, I'm going to cancel it. But it was the best thing that I ever did not to cancel it, to go, because you're right. You come back whole. You leave a little bit
guilty.
Empty. Empty. Yeah. You do. I remember that. But it's good. So what do you do with the...
Say that again.
What do you do with the mommy guilt? When you leave with that guilt, or you're getting ready to go and there's the guilt that's there, what do you do with that guilt?
I'm so much better at it. I don't have that guilt anymore.
You've forgotten how to get rid of it.
I love it. Like I love you, but I need a break. I just, everyone has to figure out how they want to manage their quote unquote guilt. But, so this is what I would do. Okay, so this is a real thing. And sometimes there is some self-discovery that I have, even as people ask me questions, and I have to think about it. So this is what I would do. And this is a part of kind of like what I teach moms who kind of need to figure out like what process they need to have for themselves in order to be able to like go away on their own. And it is really mapping out my system. Right. Mm-hmm. So because although we as women, as moms, know what we do day to day and how we do it, no one else knows how to do that. It doesn't matter if your husband kind of sees things. To them, things just magically happen. Dinner just magically gets on its the dishes magically. I'm being facetious here, but the shopping gets done, the homework gets done, the calls and the appointments are made, and kids are at school and people have clothing and people's teeth look great and their hair is combed or cut or whatever. All of these things don't just drop out of the sky. It does take some coordination. And so my husband does not keep books and lists and calendars and alarms like I do. And so although all of the things in my head were in my head, I knew that I needed to take them out of my head and put them on a piece of paper. And so the initial way that I got over that guilt was making sure that I mapped out their day, making sure that and my husband doesn't do this before he goes away, I go and do the food shopping and run around like a crazy mad woman before I go away to make sure everyone's clothing is clean, folded, and in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday order for school, right? So there's no thinking on his part or my mother-in-law's part. They just go and they, could grab their clothing. The food, everything. I mean, I would do it to the point, Regina, where I would have their whatever snacks, dry things that they were going to take for lunch, I would have them in baggies, and I would mark the day on the baggies. Like I was so crazy about it, the baggies, like the cookies, Amir cookies, Monday, Amir cookies, Tuesday, or whatever, or the chips, and I would put them in brown paper bags so that whatever the meat is or the juice that they had to do, all they had to do was that, and put that in their lunchbox. But if I was going away during the week, I would have those things in the brown paper bags where they could just go and put it away. Or so I saw the shopping, the separation of the food, the clothing, appointments. I would just make sure no appointments were happening when I was away. So it relieved that guilt of feeling like I was leaving everything on someone else's hands to take care of, and just kind of like leaving my kids out in the dark. And then you can also buy them something when you're away to bring it back and be like, here's a toy.
I was thinking of you.
Yeah, right. And say like, I was thinking of you. Mommy bought you this great little black rubber thing. If you need that extra stuff. don't care. They just want you to bring them something back.
Something back.
Like a piece of candy from a destination or something like that.
But that's not all you did. That's not all you did, because not a lot of people know that you like me, regular old plain old mommy, has made the list and has packed the things and has said, hey, while I'm gone, this is what you need to do, or has made the list for them. And I write it down. I grab a piece of paper or a notebook or something. I fold it up, I write it down, and I hand it to him. You are the mom extraordinaire, which is why Damon Johns was like, yeah, I got to meet this woman. So you don't stop at writing down. Okay, no pressure for the people that are watching. Okay, because this, everyone has their thing, everyone has their gift. Clearly, this is your gift, and you've taken it to the next level. So you don't just write things down on a piece of paper. You created a line of packing cards.
I did.
Packing cards. Who does that? You and only you.
Yeah.
So not only do they have a way when you're gone that you've already written these things out, but literally people can purchase packing cards so that they know how to pack the luggage, how to pack whatever. I think that's brilliant. So was that the impetus for that? And if not, so please share. Where did that come from?
No, actually the packing list cards came before my son was sick. And it was actually we were traveling. The packing list cards came because my husband would always say, why didn't you pack my luggage? And I was like, are you crazy? I'm not packing your luggage, because I would pack my luggage and I would pack the two kids, my two sons' luggage. And I was like, no, you can pack your own luggage. I made all of the travel plan. Of course, yeah, that's my forte, but I'm not also packing luggage, right? And so I said, and he would get a little jealous because all my stuff and all the kids' stuff was like already done, and he's still scrambling to pack. And I said, do you just make a list for you? And that's when the idea came about. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create a list for you. And I'm going to create a list for my oldest son, who was about 7. I think he was about 6 or 7 at that time that I created that so he could read. So for me, I basically created the cards so that it was mom had her own card, because those were things that I had to remember to take. I had a list of things for my son, who was an infant at that time. So these were things that I was writing down on a piece of paper. And I decided, let me just laminate them and make them pretty, and then leave them in everyone's respective luggage. So when you grab your luggage, your card is in there, and it helps you not forget things, right? Who wants to forget things when you're on vacation? Because now you've got to purchase it. And so I made one for me, one for the baby, one for my husband. It's like, what are the things that you pack, and put it in there. And then, there's blank space for, additional random things, miscellaneous things that someone has. And then for my son, and I had this thought because of autism, not that my oldest son has autism, but with autism, as you know, the PECS, picture exchange communication,
right?
Essentially you use pictures. Children with autism who have verbal limitations use pictures to express themselves or to express ideas. And so I thought of creating these a packing list card with the essential items for a child, but having a picture next to the item, just in case the child had autism, or just in case the child wasn't really fully there with reading yet, but they could identify from the picture. And then they could associate it, and it would help them read that, oh, this word is shoe, and there's a picture of a shoe next to it. And so that was really the inspiration for the packing list cards. And I said, all right, let's take this to market and see who's interested.
It's great. Great idea. Thank you so much for allowing us to have that, so we don't have to do Virginia's low budget version, the folded piece of paper.
This is what it used to go on, actually. My husband got this out of I don't know where he dug this out of a crate. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this. My listener would put our packing stuff on there. So yeah, we've come a long way from that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Now you mentioned some terms, and this is what I know a lot of folks want to know about. You mentioned some terms like being on assignment and writing for writing your pieces. So tell us how you do all of these wonderful things, and you don't pay to go to the spa when you travel. And when you go and you travel to Nicaragua, and you travel and you travel to other wonderful places, even local travel, wineries and some other areas in the local area, the East Coast here in the States, for example. How did that come about? So how do I get to travel for free? What do I have to do?
Well, you, if we want to break it down in simplest of terms, you just need to have your own message, right? And then
Mhm.
need to make sure that you are connecting with other people that support your message or like your message, or you're helping them. And so, originally, when I started in the digital space, I was just really documenting my family's crazy adventures. I was like, oh my gosh, does everyone have to go through the drama we need to go through in order to prepare for a family trip? And as I would share these stories, more women would identify with me, and men as well, and they started following me. They started following Moms Guide to Travel. They started signing up for my newsletter. They started connecting with me on, social media, because I would just share my pictures and, build
Mhm.
following. And then actually realizing, of course, I was working with a coach that helped me to steer me through some of this, because at the time it was 2008, and what social media is now was definitely what is not like then. We were
Right.
laying the groundworks and foundation and trying to figure it all out. Like now, you pretty much know what you need to do. Then we didn't know. We didn't know that a brand would pay us or pay for us to come to a destination because other people listened to our recommendations. And then we started making the connection that, oh, we are helping other people out by telling them, oh, no, don't go to that hotel. They do not have, a playground for kids, or they don't have extra cots for kids. And then someone says, oh, what hotel should I go to? And then you kind of tell them. And then when you realize that you actually have influence in that sense, and influence doesn't mean that you have to have 1 million followers. Influence is just that people listen to what you say and trust your judgment because they have a relationship with you, or they've seen something that you've done. And so when I made the connection that was of value, I capitalized on it and decided to monetize it. And the writing for the publications came along through with it. So one of the things that I do is I really kind of try to be cognizant of what markets are doing, right? Or what industries are doing, and how do I fall into place within it so that I can continue staying independent, right? But also
Mhm.
making sure that I am leveraging that independence and those relationships to provide my family with things that they would enjoy as well. So it's really, it's not complicated. It's just you have to make sure that you're identifying exactly who is listening to you and what value you have to offer, and then who on the other side of that, on a corporate side of things or brand side of things, values that as well, and what that looks like. So I mean, that's pretty much it.
And that is like that's the secret sauce, guys. So if anyone had that question, because I know that came up before the interview, it was, oh gosh, she does these wonderful things. How can I do that? So I just want to recap, because I'm a recappy kind of person.
Sure.
But it sounds like you started with just being very transparent and real about what was going on in your own life.
Mhm.
You're just sharing what's
That's the
going on in your life.
transparent. It's transparent because if you think about social media, right? Like before social
Mhm.
media, we were all kind of in these like silos, right? We were we didn't know that everyone was the thousands, millions of people were going through the same things that we were going through as women, as moms, as autism moms, until we started talking. And then people started identifying with it.
Mhm.
And everyone isn't necessarily brave enough or wants to be transparent like that to discuss their private life. But they don't mind identifying with someone else and making a connection with them. So it really is just about like this is what it is. Like, with me, what you see is what you get. It's like ain't nothing more than that. And that engages trust with people and creates relationship, and then it does create influence. So it's really just that simple.
And you've used two very important words, and I love it. I'm so glad glad I heard you say them, and you said it at least twice. I picked on at least twice. I heard relationship, and I heard trust. And I think those are incredibly invaluable. They're incredibly invaluable. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. So again, for the folks that are watching the interview series, it really doesn't matter what you're doing. I don't care if you're in corporate America. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if you are, working for a nonprofit or for profit. If you are if at the heart you're working on developing relationship and doing what you say you're going to do, that's going to develop trust in the relationship. And it sounds like that just opens a lot of doors for other things.
Absolutely.
So that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. I would very much like to know about your first official travel writing, because a lot of the blog posts, and I keep saying I went back to Nicaragua a couple times because I remember that post where you said, you know what, most people don't think about I'll just go to Nicaragua today. That's not exactly the hot spot. My dream vacation is Borneo, Malaysia, Southeast Asia. That's kind of where I want to go. You're just like, yeah, I think I'll go to Nicaragua today. So what inspired your very first piece to write to, and I think I've heard you say this before, to do something that no one else was doing at the time? I mean, there were people that went to journalism school to be journalists, photojournalists. That was their thing. These were the people that originally were writing in travel magazines, not moms. You're one of the first. You were a pioneer. You're one of the first people that did that. So tell us about your very first piece. How did that come about?
I think the very first thing that I did actually a video. I think that it was a video. My background is film as well, and I have camcorders, and I had a camcorder, and I would like, oh my gosh, I would like record our family doing things, and I want to say that was the very first thing that I did, just on a personal level, and then posted it to you again, like 2008, 2009, and it was either that it was a blog post talking about a trip. I can't remember what the first trip might have been. That's a good question. But the first professional assignment was with a company called the Nile Guide, and I was their Baltimore expert. And I loved it because I'm not a Baltimore native, and I had only been in Baltimore for like maybe a few years. And so there was so much that I wanted to discover about Baltimore. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to get paid to go and take my kids out to, Discovery Center and the zoo and all these other things that I would have done anyway. And so that's what I did. And I just think that I came on board at a time that how we understand media, it was shifting. Right, it was shifting. So you said like the professional journalists and the professional photographers. I mean, for me personally, there was never any limitation because my background is in public policy. Oh my gosh, and finances. So that to me was like fun stuff, right? Like, and like I've written dissertations. Writing a blog post about travel is kind of easy. So I never thought of like not having qualifications. Now I'm a photographer. I think that is an art. I'm like, okay. But I never had this put a limitation on myself that I couldn't do it. And I don't want to say that that's like generally speaking. If I put my mind to something, I feel like I can do it. And so travel was like, well, I enjoy it. I should be able to do it. And so I think the very first thing was like, hey, we're going to take a road trip. I think we were taking a road trip to like New Jersey. And I think that I already heard about that. And it was when people like replied back to me that I was like, oh my gosh, someone's listening to me. And so I kept doing it.
Good for you. I'm glad that you did the benefit of hearing all these wonderful stories. There are, again, two things that of course, you guys know. We got to talk about mindset. I love the mindset where you say there's a limit here. Why would I think that? Of course. And again, it came out of you just naturally doing what you do. You're traveling with your family. You just happen to video. Who travels and doesn't take pictures or doesn't video, and you just took advantage of that opportunity, and made that work. But I love how you also said that you're pretty good at the photography. There's a tongue in cheek over here because I've seen some of your promo videos, and a little bird told me that all of the pictures, for the most part, in your promo videos you took when you were on vacation.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal promo video.
You. I mean, I try to use my photos. We talk about being authentic and real. Like, if anything that you see, and it's usually, my videos is usually always my photography, because I am very adamant about respecting my art and my creativity, whatever that looks like. It's all objective, right? So yeah, I just really just kind of like use my own stuff. It's fun for me, and it's like an outlet. Like, creativity is an outlet, I think, for moms that many don't tap into, or they're afraid to, or whatever. But doing something creative helps to feed your spirit. So, and that's a part of your self-care. I'm actually writing an article about like what self-care really looks like, and that's something we're going to talk about.
And I'm glad that this is the like-mindedness. So I love it when people who have like minds get together, and I think that's a huge part of your support system, as well as to network with like-minded folks. I mean, that's what the blog does. That's what that does. That allows you to work with like-minded people as well. But the other thing is, for you, I also notice that you have, again, you just kind of keep taking things to the next level. You're not, I don't want to say you're not content to stay where you are, but you're constantly in a growth promoting mindset. That's what I see. I see that it's constantly going in a direction of growth. What would you talk to someone who's just kind of struggling with this idea of self-care? You did the 12 days of self-care in December. And I thought that was wonderful. The 12 days of Christmas was 12 days of self-care. Of course, you talk about travel as respite, but I'm also seeing a fair amount where you're putting out with just talking to people about the other love of yours, which is the videography. And you have a new, we're going to give away the Mom's Guide to Travel tonight, but you have another book, and it has nothing really to do with travel. It doesn't have anything to do with travel, but it is another one of your loves. And so tell us about it.
Well, I think so. Someone would be like, "Oh my gosh, this woman does all these things," but it all boils down to the common thread. Is the common thread, I want to say, is creativity. So I love creating products, and the products that I create, let's just be clear, are things that I use. And I say to myself, like, well, now if I can use this, right? If I think that this is valuable, maybe someone else will think that it's valuable, right? If we think about all of the great products that come out, and we're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? Well, that's because someone thought of it and they needed it, or they had spoken to someone who stated to them what the problem is, and they came up with a solution, right? And so any of the products that I've created had to do with providing a solution to something, right? So if we think about the packing list cards, that was because my husband was like, why do you pack for me? Okay, honey, here's a gift. Here is a laminated list back for yourself. You don't have to think about it. You just need to grab things. We think about the Mom's Guide to Saving Money on the Travel book. That was people who really want to travel, or they saw me traveling and was like, oh my gosh, how do I do it? I don't have money. And being honest with them and saying, hey, you know what? I do this for business, so I am compensated or taken care of when I go, but this is how you do it with a smaller budget. And then if we think about the other product, my live video planning workbook, that is a workbook for me because I talk to people through video. Like, I use video. I've always used video to either document my journeys or even now kind of help moms get over some things, just kind of counsel them and coach them or show them how I'm doing it. And I just love the power of video because we can make a connection. You can get to know me a lot quicker, and I feel a lot better if you're seeing me on camera. We're kind of talking together versus if you're reading my words. And so when I saw, again, it comes to opportunity that people were like, hey, can you help me do this? Can I pay you to help me do this? Okay, great. That's another, business, another source of income. But in that, I had to make sure that I was documenting my process for myself, because what happens when you are dealing with a child with autism, there's just like a lot of overload. So motherhood, there's overload, and then adding a special need on top of it, there's even more overload. And so there are some days when, like, I just can't think straight. But if I have a list, I don't have to think. I just follow the list, right? I just follow the instructions, the manual. And so that's what I wanted to do when I created that workbook. And then I showed it to a friend, and she was like, oh my gosh, you should sell this. And so that's why I decided to sell it, because, it helps people get over their fear of getting on camera. It helps them, have a strategy for their videos. It helps them design their editorial calendar and figure out what each one of their episodes is going to be about, or know whether or how they should take their video from wherever it is and put it somewhere else. But it's everything that I do and everything that I use, and I just share it with people. So all I'm ever doing is sharing with people my processes to make things work, right? And all the craziness. That's it. So if people say, how does she do it? How does it make it work? Well, here's everything that shows you exactly how I'm doing it and making it work. So I'm just kind of like taking everything out of the head and putting it on a piece of paper. That's it.
I love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. We talk about strategies for success. This is not our first interview. Last year, you graced me with an interview, and it was a part of our series of talking about our secrets to success or strategies for success. And we ended up doing a recipe for sanity. So actually, one of the things that I'm going to do now, and hopefully I won't mess anything up because I'm not the tech person, you're the tech person. What I'm doing now is I'm actually going to share a file. So for the folks that are in the webinar right now, I just shared a file. It's a downloadable file right now, and it's called Recipe for Sanity. And it's from the original interview series that I did last year with Tawana Brown Smith and 6 other wonderful, phenomenal parents who happen to be parents of children with autism from a variety of ages. From, I think the youngest was 2, the oldest at that time, Nick, was 19, from Di Maitland, who's a blogger from South Africa. And so she came on, and this recipe for sanity is actually a culmination of all of the interviews and all of the information that they gave, including what you just said, which is why it's up right now. Talk about a great segue. You would think you're a plant, but we didn't plan this, guys. We did not plan this. It all comes in together. It's a perfect time to share it. But it is an opportunity for you to write down your system for success. That's exactly what it is. And it is our gift to you. And it literally, it's an actual recipe. There's a nice little logo on the side that's got a picture of kids cooking. What I want you to do is take a picture of your child, your kid, your family, yourself, if you're the person that's on the autism spectrum. I want you to put that picture right there to remind you that, a nice happy picture of yourself right there. And then I want you to fill in the blanks, because it says, that you need a quarter cup of whatever it is. Okay. And we've got things like patience and other things, hobbies and creativity, all of these things, a lot of the things that I want to talk about tonight, because these were things that were mentioned in the original interview, and we just put them down. And then it just kind of talks you through that. And if you have any questions about it, you guys know how to reach me by now. You've got all kinds of wonderful links, and I'll share a couple of them with you before we end. When Zawana is sharing how to reach her, I'll share how to reach me as well. But go ahead and download that file. I'm going to leave that up for just a wee little bit more so that people can download that file if they're interested in doing that. And then that's what, write it down. Write down your system, not just for if you decide to go on vacation and you want someone to know what's going on with your child, but write it down on a day-to-day basis. There are times that I'm standing in my kitchen and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do next? And it's, oh yeah, I'm supposed to lay out the kids' clothes for this or for that. If it's written down, if the system's already written down, if it's, 9:45 we do this and 10:30 we do that. And, it's not about being rigid. It's about having structure. Okay. We talk about this in our mindset webinar, that we create our own structure. And you're not just creating structure for now, you're creating structure for the future that you want for your life, for your family, for your child. So hopefully you had an opportunity to download that, because now I want to segue back over. I definitely, yes, please, please.
Here's, I think, one of the other things that I've always thought about through this journey is that I always want to write things down and document things because, and a lot of us don't think this way because it makes us feel uncomfortable. But, God forbid, I am not here tomorrow. What does my husband know to do? Because I've done everything, right? And so I wanted to make sure that I had things written down for him so that he knows, oh, okay, this is exactly what she, did until he could get his rhythm for himself. And so that's why it was always important for me to kind of like document things and say where things were or say how to do, and he could find it. Or if, his mom came in and is coming into a home that's not her own, and children who have uh, schedules and norms and, quirks that she's not familiar with, she knows how she can just jump right into it. Okay, this one eats this one eats that. This one goes to school at this time or wakes up at this time. This one likes to do this. So that it's not hard for anyone, just in case, too hard, let's say too hard for anyone, let's use that adjective, just in case I, became incapacitated, couldn't speak, or something happened to me. So sometimes it's not things that people want to talk about, but it's important, right?
It's very important. Another segue, I promise I didn't plant her in the audience, guys. She's a presenter, so I couldn't have planted her in the audience. But one of the topics that we're going to have this year is about estate planning, because I have found that the thing that strikes fear, the biggest fear in the heart of parents of special needs kids, especially, is what if something happens to me? And there's this funny meme. It's funny, but it's kind of like dark humor funny that's rolling around. I'm sure we've all seen it, that says, "I'm an autism mom. I can never die." You feel like I can't die because what if something happens to me? What's going to happen to my child? Okay, every parent kind of wonders about that. For a special needs parent, that's the kind of stuff that can keep you awake at night. And so we will have an entire month dedicated to that. We will have an entire month dedicated to planning now for, these things. So it's an example of writing it down. We're going to talk about special needs trust. We're going to talk about estate planning. We're going to talk about insurance. We're going to talk about asset protection. All these things are very important. And I promise you that the fear will go away. Why? Because we're replacing it with action. Okay. And they can't stay in the same place. Fear and action it's just not possible. So we get rid of that fear by action. Okay. And fear is just false evidence appearing real. So we get that out of the way. And that helps us a lot. So please stay tuned. If you haven't already signed up for the full series, definitely do that, because you're going to want to get in on that. So I'm going to pull that down. And the other thing that I'm going to share now is another wonderful thing that we already talked about. This is a 5-day self-care. And this is basically for those folks that are struggling a little bit, okay? And self-care is just short spurts of respite. Respite is usually a little bit longer, okay? But respite can be an hour, okay? I know some parents that are like, I cannot leave my son for more than an hour because, who's going to watch him for longer than that? But this 5-day self-care course actually dovetails with what Tawana did, the 12-day self-care. I think we had folks do the 12-day self-care, and once they finished that, some of them went over and over and did the 5-day self-care. But this is an opportunity, if you really are struggling with learning how to do some basic things, and it goes into what self-care is and what it is not. Self-care is not selfish. Okay, self-care is one of the most selfless giving things that you can possibly do, because you heard Tawana say it. When she goes away on trips, she comes back feeling refreshed and feeling like she's full. Her capacity is full. And we don't want to be walking around giving people the dredges at the bottom of our cup. Doesn't look pretty. I'm just telling you, it's not a good look. It's not a pretty look. So if you're interested in that, definitely sign up there. And Tawana, I want people to be able, I know there are 2 sites that you have, but I want people to be able to connect with you. Most folks know about the Mom's Guide to Travel. It's literally the Mom's Guide to Travel. I think many people have already visited, and you will see her blogs. You will see the information that she has to share. You will see the wonderful things that she's doing, and just so much more you're going to see there. But also, if they want to know more about the video you, and we're not talking video vixen here, we're talking about true, real good stuff here, substance. Tawana, is it Tawana B. Smith?
Yeah. So I have 3 properties. If they are interested in knowing about video, they can go to mgttravelmedia.com.
Okay.
Travelmedia.com. And anything that I am that's like just about travel, really momsguidetotravel.com. And it's tips for men too, so it's not, just women, but it is geared towards women. Lots of resources there. That's where anyone would go to hire me for any personal, trip planning or personal retreat planning services for them, or anyone was interested in joining me on a retreat. We do, our couples retreat coming up in April, which I'll be happy when it's done because it's a lot of work. Or any of those types of resources. There's a free resources there as well, if they plugs and the packing parts, and then specifically for the like messaging for women, then they would go to tawanabsmith.com and find just videos on that blog and ideas that challenge how we view our self-care and the things that we need in our life, and what we should be looking at. If anybody ever wants to just like get me directly, just go to the Facebook page, Mom's Guide to Travel, and send me a message. Like, I love when I get messages from people there. Like, it's just, pretty much any of those resources you'll find there, and it's just an opportunity for us to chat and get to know each other a little better.
All right, there you go. So I put all of those in the chat, and I just want to give you some feedback, Tawana. So Mark says this is fascinating, and he's been enjoying this. Ramon, who is our data coach, he's phenomenal. He did say you have to follow the data, and it's good to have these things written down. When you were talking about writing things down, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted you to know he sent you lots of smiley faces to say this is good stuff, because it's true. When you write these things down, then you've got the data, and then you can follow it. So then again, whether something happens to you in a bad way, or whether you just want to go up for travel for respite, someone else can pick up the pieces and keep it moving. And that's so important for our children, right? They need the routine, and a lot of times they need the structure. So we want to make sure that they are getting both. Now, here's the deal. We have folks that are in, and we are going to bless someone with a copy of your book. And so all of the folks that are in the webinar right now are eligible. But here's the thing. I did get a message from one of our moderators that some folks were having a hard time getting into Webinar Jam. And so this is being broadcasted on YouTube Live. And so I know a couple folks went over to YouTube Live. And I want to capture everyone. So I want to be a woman of my word, where I said that we are giving away a copy of Tawana's book, Tawana Brown Smith's book, tonight. We are. The copy is going to be given away tonight. But what I am going to do is we're going to, just in the fairness for those who may not have been able to stay in the Webinar Jam, and they're not physically here right now, so they couldn't physically stay till the end. They may have be over in the YouTube. What we're going to do is all the folks that registered and that actually came into the portal, even if they came in and they got booted out or for whatever reason, we're going to include all those folks. So just to be fair, if everybody's okay with that, if all hearts and minds are clear on that one, again, I don't want to cheat anybody or be dishonest in any way. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pull together everyone from our YouTube Live folks as well as our Webinar Jam folks to see who actually came in the room. And one of those folks are going to get selected. It is a random selection. I don't even think I have anything to do with it. Our moderator is the folks in the control room do it. But they're going to pull up together all the results, and they're just going to pick a random name. Okay. And that person is going to be announced by email as well as in our newsletter. Our first newsletter is going to go out this month because this is the official launch of the Autism Alignment Movement. Yay, I'm excited. So what is the Autism Alignment Movement? If you haven't already heard, it is literally basically a resource and support network. That's what it is. And we are going to be conducting, as a part of the movement, a series of 21 interviews over the next 12 months. And so, yes, that averages a little more than one interview a month. And what we're going to do is we're going to have each and every month one interview of a parent, and we're going to have an interview of an expert, or sometimes we'll have a parent expert like Tawana Brown Smith. And each month is going to have a theme. So we're keeping it chill and going along with the autism grind for the month of March, because it is National Disability Awareness Month. And so for that month, we're going to have two phenomenal speakers, Gary Wise as well as Dawn Allen, who are going to talk about the autism grind. And we're also going to have an expert, a pediatrician who has an expertise in autism, who's going to chime in. And basically, we're going to be able to ask her the questions that maybe we feel a little too embarrassed to ask when we're in the room. And she's going to tell us the things that she wished we would ask. So the next time you go back and see your pediatrician, you will be more informed. Okay. And so that's going to be next Friday on March the 2nd at 9 p.m. We're going to have that. So hopefully you will tune in for that. But anyone that was in the webinar tonight, one of you very blessed people are going to get a copy of Tawana Brown Smith, The Mom's Guide to Travel, being able to 10 tips for vacationing and saving money while you vacation. So I'm really excited. I hope everyone's expectations were met and exceeded tonight. I see some good feedback in the chat. So this is great. I'm excited to see that. And before we go, any questions? If you do have a question, if you're on YouTube Live, I'm sorry, I can't see you over there. I'm in the webinar jam room, so I can't see you over there. But if you are in the webinar jam room, if you have a question for Tawana Brown Smith before she bids us farewell for the night, then you can go ahead and leave it in the chat. But while I'm waiting to see if anyone has anything there, Tawana, any final words of wisdom that you want to offer?
I was actually looking for a copy of the book so that I could, show it to you all. And I'm happy to, I know that I have the mom packing list card. So, we can give some more people some things, right? So it's not the whole family set. It's just for one, right? And we will, just something to put in your suitcase to just help you with that process. So more than one person will get something tonight. And I'll just
Did you hear that?
Dr. Regina.
She said, I'm super excited. I just don't know what to do with myself. You guys know I love giveaways. Y'all know, if you followed me for any length of time, you know I love giveaways. I'm always giving something away, to the point that my husband is like, he's like, why are you always giving stuff away? Because I like doing it. I love it. I love doing it. I love seeing happy people, and I love being able to give away things and see the smile on their faces. It's so exciting to me. So we're going to have this wonderful, wonderful book that's going to be given away. But now we're also going to have a packing card. Look at that. Do you see the packing card? And you see the logo, the Mom's Guide? I love the logo. Love the logo.
So simple for mom, and you pick. Dr. Regina is going to be picking everyone, not me. So I'm just
one of our wonderful moderators are going to do it. We've got a whole host of folks that are helping us out here, and I was actually looking to see if I had a picture of the copy of the cover of the book, because usually I download everything, but I don't see it right now. So we're going to have more than one winner then. So that's great. So we're going to have more than one winner, and what we're going to do is we're going to have at least two winners. So someone's going to get the packing cards, and then someone else is going to get a copy of the book. So stay tuned. Look at your email, because I'll definitely send it out an email to you first to let you know that you're a winner. And then it'll come out in the newsletter as well, that it will say, congratulations to our winner of the book, and then congratulations to our winner of the packing card. So the first name that's going to get drawn will get the book. And then the second name that gets drawn will get the packing card. How about that? 1, 2, 3, boom. I love it. I love it. Okay, well, I thank you so much. Tawana Brown Smith, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Every time I talk with you, it is encouraging. I think this is the first time I've spoken to you and I have not cried. So that's always a good sign, guys. No, seriously, you blessed us with, at the Time for Mommy retreat, and I was literally bawling over in the corner when I was hearing your story. And I think someone had to hand me tissues. I said, and I know, and I had to speak that day. And I told you, I said, doggone you. Now my mascara is running. I had to go refresh myself before I started speaking. But tonight I'm glad I didn't cry. So thank you for not making me cry. Thank you for making me laugh this time. Thank you so much. So again, we want to thank her for joining. And for you guys, I thank you so much for being a part of the Autism Alignment Movement pre-launch. The official launch starts literally, it starts the beginning of March in honor of National Disability Awareness Month. So stay tuned and stay informed. And you guys have a very blessed night on purpose. Take care.